All right, there we go. What is up, everyone? Scott Brandt, host of the Journey Beyond Divorce podcast, coming on with a little laugh here. So I do have a special guest on with me today, Erin, and
Yes.
we had connected through Facebook, and through a Facebook group, I had shared my podcast, and she had reached out and wanted to come and join with me on the podcast. And as I explained to everybody, I am open to having anybody come on to share their story, to share their journey, to really connect, because I may not connect with everybody. And so by having that resource where they have somebody that they may connect better with than me, that's all I'm looking for. So that way we can help each other out. And it's funny, Erin, I know when we had talked the original over the phone to kind of discuss the podcast, when I was listening to your story, I was like, man, this is a female version of myself, kind of what I went through to get to where I'm at now. And I was like, this is kind of unique how a story is popping up on the opposite side. And I loved it just because of that uniqueness on that one. So what I'll have you do is share a little bit of your story, and then we'll just kind of get into the discussion, let it flow, and then go from there.
First of all, I just want to comment on the meerkats behind you. I didn't notice them when we were talking earlier, and anyways, good job. I'm Erin. I'm a self-love and divorce recovery coach, and I help women and men become the heroines of their own epic love story. So the reason why I sit here today is because I have definitely been through it. I was in an 8-year relationship that ended up in marriage and then also ended up in divorce. But basically, after I was out of that relationship, I realized that I had no idea who the hell I was. And I look back and it's like, I actually had no idea who I was for my entire life, because I had been living this idea of who I was supposed to be. So, getting a good job, getting married, having the partner that checks all the boxes, having kids, having the house, and realizing that I was just living life and going through the motions and not actually looking in within myself or knowing who I was to even assess, well, is that right for me? Is this the path that's right for me? And I, having come out of that divorce, I basically had to rebuild myself. And I feel very grateful that I had gone through that, because it really pushed me to find out who I truly was, start actually taking myself on dates, with just me, and being able to really find out what my likes were, what I wanted out of life, and also what I wanted in a partner, and not just those ideals that society and we're told to at such a young age to have in our lives. So that's my story.
And so it's unique because with the previous relationship that you had before you really stepped into your purpose, finding out who you truly were, how long were you guys together? And was it something that the relationship started at an early age? So what was that for you with that piece of the relationship?
Yeah, so we were together for 8 years. I think we started dating when I was 25. But our marriage, I'm pretty sure, lasted 6 months. So, almost like a Kim Kardashian marriage. So, anyway, but yeah, like I think what drew me, and I mean, obviously, I loved this man at a time, and I was drawn by, he checked all the boxes. He was a good looking guy. He was, he had a great job. He was close with his family. But the one thing that I wasn't accounting for in that relationship was an emotional connection. and being able to connect with this person on a different level. Do we have the same values? Are we going toward the same goal in life? And we weren't. And a lot of the times I was grasping onto something that was never really truly there.
Mm,
And really, I didn't want to disappoint anyone with, getting rid of this relationship per se, but it was like I felt like I had to be in this relationship because I didn't want to disappoint my family. I didn't want to disappoint my friends. I didn't want to um, disappoint myself because
mm,
this is, what I thought that I wanted for so long. It was like my, you know, dream idea of what I thought success looked like and what I thought, a successful relationship looked like, quote
mm,
unquote. But it really wasn't because I felt so alone in that relationship and completely lost. I developed severe anxiety, got depression. Like it was not, I was constantly second guessing myself because I wasn't, brave enough to, actually say, hold up,
mm,
what is happening here? So, and for me, the end of my marriage wasn't necessarily my doing. And it almost came to a point where the other person did something that went against what I believed was true in a marriage. So it basically forced me out of that relationship. So I didn't even at that point, make that decision. It was basically a decision made for me.
mm.
But looking back, I am so glad that the universe put that in my path and made that happen because it woke me up to my life.
Mm.
I just feel like there's so many people like in relationships and they're just going through the motions and just not actually even listening to themselves.
Mm.
Yeah. So,
And that right there, that piece right there, where you said it kind of woke you up, and you were grateful that it did take place. That's one thing I tell people for myself is I'm grateful my divorce took place. I'm grateful that it happened because it opened up where I step into what I'm doing now with that connection piece and really truly finding out what I'm meant to do in life. And it's unique because I talk to people about the idea of foundational values. And so these are my true values. This is what leads me in everything that I do. And it's one of those powerful things that if you can go and be grateful, because there was a time where you loved that other person and
mm-hmm.
it was just a piece of that journey. But it is one of those very tough things when you look at it. You're like, man, I had to go through a divorce to find who I truly was meant to be. But if you look at it on the flip side of it's part of the journey. So it's part of the growth piece. It's part of that process to help me get to where I'm at, even though it was a very heartbreaking journey potentially in that piece. I look back now and I'm like, man, this is what I need to work on. This is what I can take going forward. And it's interesting. So when you bring that up and you talk to individuals, because when you're working with clients, you're sharing your heart story, you're sharing your message so they can connect with you. When you share that piece with the individuals that you work with, what is the response that you usually get when you share saying, I'm grateful that my divorce took place because it's opened up to where I'm at now? What's that response that you get from other people when you share that?
Well, the first reaction is, holy crow. Like they're just, first of all, they're like, how could a divorce ever be good? Like that is the most terrible news I've ever heard.
Mm,
And it's like, well, at first it's really, really tough, but then it forces you to actually look at your life and take stock of what's going on because it unearths a lot of, stories that you've told yourself and
mm,
behaviors and things in life. And I mean, if you allow yourself to go to go that deep and be able to figure out, okay, so why did this happen? And do that excavating. And that's kind of why, with my clients and, how I've started this business is this idea that, life is an adventure. And I look at life as a video game where, I personally am a big fan of Tomb Raider. So she is like my idol in terms of how I see myself, because there was a Halloween just after my divorce that, I decided that I was going to do something fun for Halloween and dress up as Tomb Raider. And so I did. And it was this, I put this costume on, and it was the most badass I've ever felt. And I was just like, how do I take this and be able to feel like this every day? Like, how does this happen? And so I made that my life's work, to be able to help people find that inner heroine or inner hero. Because, as I said, life is like a video game where you have to go through the levels. You have to go through all of those fire-breathing dragons, all of those packs of men with guns, all of those challenges. But along the way, you're, capturing health. You are getting trinkets and things that help you along your journey. So when you get to the next level, you have everything you need to really push you forward into who you're truly supposed to be and that life that you're supposed to have. So really, if you look at divorce and any other challenging situation, it's like you have to, sorry, there's people coming in the door here, they're distracting me. You have to look at it as, this key to another door. It's a key to another chapter to your life. And that's how I look at it, where, divorce sucks. It does. It is terrible. And you're gonna come out of it, and the first couple months are gonna suck profusely, and you're gonna cry. You're gonna go through a box of Kleenexes. You're gonna eat a couple tubs of ice cream, but then you are gonna get out of it. And you are going, and if you do the work and you technically have, a coach behind you or a friend, you have a good support system, you're able to get out of that quicker, and you're able to learn more about the tools to find out who you are and just have a support. And it's, in the end, you realize that it might take some time, but you'll realize that it's actually happening for you.
And I think that's huge, especially when you talk about the piece of finding that tribe, finding a coach, finding a friend. I think the friend piece, we've got to be careful on that one, because you could get into a very vicious cycle with having a friend as your accountability partner, but maybe they keep drawing you down that vicious cycle and you get stuck. And so they want to commensurate the misery, and it keeps building and building. Because yesterday it's unique, because with this piece here, I had a speaking engagement that I spoke to a small group, and the last speaker talked about the evolutionary partnership and having those people that, okay, I'm going to give you 3 days, do what you need to get through the emotion. But after that, we've got to keep moving forward. But I think when we look at the divorce piece, though, I think it's one of those things that we have to be mindful that everybody's going to heal differently, and we have to embrace the emotions, but you can't let the emotions dictate who you are as an individual, and you can't allow them to dictate everything. You've got to embrace them and know that they're there. So when you look at that and you're talking to an individual, how much of the time do you get pushback from individuals saying, oh, I don't want anybody around, I don't want to talk about this? What's the pushback that you get on that? And when you get pushback, what do you usually bring up and suggest to these individuals to kind of help with the momentum forward?
Well, first of all, I say, how is that going when you're doing it on your own? How are you doing it? How are you getting through that process alone? I mean, it is totally a process that you need to do some work on your own, obviously. But I think having people in your life, and sometimes certain friends, you have to be choosy of the friends that you allow into your accountability circle, and you have to have the right people in there. But just having other people in your life so that you're not sitting in your wallow, you're able to go and do things with friends, go on walks, go on hikes, be able to experience life rather than sitting in this puddle of sadness because you had lost your life. And I think the key piece is that you totally need to, hone in on those emotions and feel them. But like you said, don't stay in them. Find ways to, be able to get yourself out there in terms of being with family and friends. Or if you don't have any of those people around, find support groups online. There are so many, like I've seen so many Facebook groups just about divorce and being single and empowering you. So those places are great as well. Just I don't think you should suffer alone, because I think that you can get into a really, really dark place if you're not able to express or ask for help. Asking for help is the first thing you need to do. So yeah, that's what I would share.
And I think, because I don't know if you've heard the statistics for men. This is a gentleman that I've met through my Journey program, my coaching program, which is called Journey. And he shared the statistic that for men, 39 men a day will kill themselves because of an expired relationship, because of a loss of a relationship, a divorce. And I look at my story, and I did get to a point I never considered that piece of ever looking that way. But when you look at that and you hear that statistic, because I speak from a guy's perspective, I'm like, as guys, we truly suck with our emotions. For yourself, as a coach that works with both men and women, what do you see as the biggest sticking point for men when it comes to seeking help and finding a coach? Because that, like you call yourself a divorce recovery coach. That was something that took me a while to find that name for what I do. But when you work with men, what is the biggest thing that you see when it comes to stepping up and getting away from a belief that I don't need to ask for help, I can do this on my own?
I mean, with men, it's hard because there is a lot of stigma around men, having feelings and being able to share them. I do think it is getting better, but I think for me is getting on like podcasts like this and being able to share stories and being able to let people know that it's okay. We're all human, no matter if you're female or male. We all have emotions. We all go through shit that we need to express, and we need to, take care of and be compassionate, not only with ourselves, but with everyone. So I think being able to, and I actually had a gentleman reach out to me the other day because I had posted something around my divorce. And he was like, I don't know what came over me, but hearing you share your story and be so vulnerable, it felt okay for me to feel like I could reach out to you to connect and to, work on myself. And I have a call with him. So I think that's the whole idea, is that I love what you're doing, because I think more men need to express their feelings and be able to share. Because if we're not sharing, we're internalizing all of that. And it's bad news bears. So whether or not you are female, male, whatever, it doesn't matter. We're all human. We all have feelings. We all go through things differently. And there is no shame in sharing how you feel, or crying, or, being angry about something, because it's life.
No. And that right there speaks volumes, because that's another piece that I really hit on with individuals. When you had shared your story, you showed up, were transparent, vulnerable with that story that you had shared. And then you had that gentleman that reached out and said, hey, because of you sharing your message, it opened up where I was able to look and say, okay, yeah, I can heal and I can do this work for myself. But it's a unique thing, because when it comes to sharing that story, because it's a core aspect of who we are, and a lot of people are scared to step up and share that message, because you're pulling back the curtains and really letting people see the dark side, potentially. I want to call it dark side, but the sticky points that a lot of times people don't want to face. And it's unique because it's that powerful aspect that people can connect with, is having those ordinary stories, having those common stories that they can connect with and be like, man, they did it, so I can do it too, if they believe. So that's the biggest thing for yourself. When it came to being able to share your story and message, how long did it take you to get to the point where you were able to open up and be transparent and vulnerable with the general public, especially using social media? That's one of those things that it's the joys of, you have the support, but you also have people that are vicious sometimes behind the keyboard. How long did it take you to really get to that point where you could open up, share that message, share your story, and be vulnerable and transparent, and really not worry about what other people are thinking about?
It's hilarious that we're talking about this, because growing up, I was shy. I cared so much about what people thought. Like, I would get so nervous, I'd get the sweats, because I thought people would. It was just a lot of anxiety. And as the years went on, I think I started to get a bit of my confidence, and I've kind of always been someone who wears my heart on my sleeve, who wears my emotions on my sleeve, not necessarily to share it to the entire world at that point, but I think the experience of going through divorce and looking back on my life and seeing, like, oh my God, who is that girl? Who was that girl? I don't even know her. And seeing the hiding of who I was for so long, that I just kind of like, you know what? Screw this. Screw the script. Screw everything. And I was just like, I don't want anyone else to feel this way anymore. I don't want anyone to have to go through that. And my girlfriend's actually coined me Oversharing Erin. So now that is my nickname. And I'm cool with it. And now it's just like, because people know that I do it, like, once you do it, once you actually let your guard down and you share your beautiful story, it's going to be so much easier for you to share other things with other people. Not necessarily throwing it out on Instagram or social, but once you start being more vulnerable with yourself, in your relationships, with your family, in life in general, life gets a hell of a lot easier. And you just kind of shed away this idea of caring what people think, because their opinions do not matter. Where you are in your life, those opinions don't matter. If you're married, single, divorced, whatever, you live your life the way you're supposed to.
And right there with that freedom piece to really just show up and be your true solid self. Once you're able to remove that mask, that pseudo mask, it just opens up a lot of different doors. It opens up a lot of different avenues where you can show up and not be worried about what's going on here. What's up?
Yeah, I decided to go bowling.
Well, we'll see. Okay.
Oh, good.
My
I'm
little
glad that
one.
I wasn't the
Yeah.
only one that like went off camera. I was like, oh God, those people are distracting me.
It's all good. So real life here. So I love it.
Real life,
But
it's all
it
good.
does. It comes into really, I think, once you do show up and you're true to yourself and you take that pseudo mask off, it's huge because things start opening up. I've noticed when I'm talking to individuals, somehow like they get to other points that normally you probably want to share if you're meeting with somebody the first time. But I'm just sitting here and they're like, "How did we get here?" I was like, "I just sit here and give you space and just allow you to talk and just share." What has that? Have you ever had that experience where you're just talking to somebody and all of a sudden it goes into probably a piece that you normally wanted to share the first time meeting with somebody, but it just comes out of nowhere? Have you ever had that experience before meeting with somebody new?
Every single session. Every single session. Sorry, my sister is calling me now. It's real life here. Yes, but every single session that I have with my clients, we always go off script. But here's the beautiful thing about that is that when you have such a connection with your client and that client feels so comfortable with you, they're able to like let down their guard, share their story, and be able to, reveal something else that they may have been having an issue with. Actually, one of my clients the other day, she was like, how the heck did we get onto this topic? Like every session, I just feel like, we're going off track. And I'm like, it's not off track. We are going through what you need to go through. We're covering what we need to cover. And that's the beautiful thing about, and I'm sure you have the same experience with coaching, is that you help others really share their story and, rewrite it for themselves.
Yep.
And be able to rewrite a story that empowers them and like allows them to realize that they can do something that they may or may not have thought they could do. And that's why I love what I do, is because you empower people to live a life that is authentic to them. And that's all you can really ask for.
Yeah. And man, that's one of those powerful things because, like you had talked about, there's a lot of different groups on Facebook that people can go and find their tribe, go connect with individuals. I think the thing that when it comes to though is how often are they legitimately getting that authentic space, and are we having individuals that are they're trying to be helpful, but there's times that people will bring stuff up, will push stuff out that they're working on, and then it gets pushed out onto other people, and then the judgment potentially starts showing up. And I think that's one of those things that as a coach, it's like, okay, if something's bubbling up here and it's starting to give you some issues, or you're like, oh man, what's going on here? You got to be very careful on that because you want to make sure you're giving space. But the beautiful thing is it does open up the doors as you're working with somebody to say, oh man, here's something that I didn't think about yet that I need to go do some work on, see what's taking place. I think that's the beautiful thing that a lot of coaches talk about is not only are you helping somebody else out, but you're legitimately helping yourself out. I tell people when it comes to this podcast, for me, it's a selfish avenue for me because I get to talk and speak and whatnot, but it also is that avenue where it opens up and I can become part of somebody else's journey, share what I've gone through, share different tools and whatnot. That opens up the door for them to find things that may work for them, find stuff to put in their toolbox that can help them out in the long run. But it is one of those unique things how sometimes as a coach, there's going to be things that pop up that you didn't even realize until you talk to somebody. You're like, oh man.
Honestly, it is a learning experience both for my client and for myself. Like I have had sessions where actually like I have gotten things out of it where I was like, oh, okay, this is coming up for me. So I'm going to have to work on this. Like and then even like they'll say something coaching to me. I was like, excuse me, who is the coach in this? Like, but it really is just about connecting with people, and you never know who you're going to meet, how that connection is going to flow. And really the essence of being with a client is being able to help and inspire. And they do that for me too. Like I don't sit there and be like the coach all the time. I am also learning. I am also grabbing insights from my clients as well, because their stories are beautiful and I want to learn from them as too.
And when you look, so going back on the journey that you've gone through, when you first started that journey after going through the divorce, was there an internal story? Was there an internal struggle that really surfaced over time and time again for you? That was that one big thing that you had to go and slay. What was that for you, if there was anything of that nature? Because I know some people be like, I didn't experience anything. And I'm like, okay, so I don't know. I'll leave you at your word.
I love how you said slay. Yes, I went out and I slayed. And for me, it was a slow process because I was still stuck in my story of like, you know, not being good enough and having to have this, you know, stay below the lines, follow the rules, do what other people want me to do. And then I actually, the universe brought me a dream one night, and I woke up and had this idea of the Joy Tribe Co. And it originally started with a couple events around mental health. And then I continued to do just little things. And then the voice started to get bigger, and I was going job to job, and obviously unfulfilled in my job, unfulfilled in my life as a whole. And then it came to a point where it was like, I am sick and tired of trying to be this person that I'm supposed to be, when I know in my heart that I'm supposed to be doing something different. And I just said, you know what? I quit. So I quit my job, and then started doing my heart's work. And here I am now.
That's awesome. And I think that's where every time I talk to a coach, it's really truly the high heavy hitter coaches that are very proficient but have that authenticity of what they do. It's some sort of pain point that really stirred up, and they're like, forget this. I'm done with this. I need to figure something out. And it steps into that piece of who they are, that true authentic self. And so it is unique just how when you listen, a lot of times it is those tough, sticky points that a lot of times people will try to run away from. People will be like, I can't deal with this anymore. The challenge, the struggle that they may be facing. A lot of people want to run away from that. And I'm like, you really don't want to face it and overcome that, because that's just part of your journey. That's part of your growth piece. And that's allowing you to get to that next level that you need to get to. But it is a matter of how do you view that challenge in front of you, that part of the journey.
Yeah. I think the key to looking at it as an opportunity, and I mean, that seems like, why the heck would you call it like something so disastrous an opportunity? But it's like the opportunity is to learn. It's like looking at the situation and being like, okay, what was the situation trying to teach me? What am I supposed to learn here? What am I supposed to, how do I now move forward? And I think if you're able to look at situations like divorce, looking at it as an opportunity to learn, it is going to be much easier for you to recover and be able to move forward, because you're actually, you know, allowing yourself to be open to learning and be open to new opportunities, instead of saying, oh, I don't want to deal with anything. I don't want to, you know, deal with those gross emotions. I just want to stuff it all down and forget about it. And most times, I'm going to say, those feelings creep back in the most unrelenting ways. So it's really about, okay, if what can I control in this situation? What can I learn? And how do I move forward?
And now when you look at where you're at, did you ever imagine you would be in this spot to helping other people out? Did you ever imagine or ever think about the strength of your story, the ability of what you've gone through, how that can impact somebody else? Did that ever come up growing up, or was this ever anything that you thought about or considered?
I'm laughing because that is, if you were to ask me 3, 4, 5 years ago, if I would be sitting on a podcast and someone asking me this question, I laughed. I would laugh in their face because I just never thought I would be able to break down my own walls, shed all the shame I felt in my life about, like, who the divorce I went through and all of these ideas that I had to fit myself in a little box and like be that perfect individual. And now I just don't really care. And I just want to help people. And I want people to see that they have value and they can make it. They have a choice. You have a choice in your life, whether I know that you don't believe it. But you always have a choice, and you can do the things you want to do in your life. You can be the hero. You can be the heroine that, conquers their life. You just have to choose to do it and want to do it. So that is why I do what I do.
That's amazing. And it comes to the point because I look, and when I went through the divorce, I was like, if I would have had somebody I could have leaned into, it would have been a little bit easier. But I didn't, so I had to go through it, stepped into it, got to where I'm at now, and really got into the world of personal development, the different mindset piece, the power of your thoughts, the subconscious, everything of that underneath the sun. And I had the same thing. I tell people, I'm like, if I look back 5 years ago and I see where I'm at now, even though that 5 years is now 2 years because of the growth taking place, but going back, if I looked at, from where I was before and where I'm at now, I'd be like, I don't even say we're here. This guy's doing some crazy stuff, whatnot. It's all good. But it is unique how you get asked that question. You're like, I don't know. If I go back to that time, I wasn't where I'm at now, and my mindset was a completely different piece where I was at compared to now. And that's funny. Like I said, just out of the story with what you have, I'm like, man, this is just kind of a mirror. Everything's a little bit different and whatnot, but it's such a weird mirroring equation here that has occurred in regards to that we don't know each other. The first time that we talked was the first time that we had the phone call to discuss the podcast, and then just having this deeper conversation on the pod. And so it is unique how you come across people and how just things are spectacular in the end in regards to the relationships, just people that you get to meet.
Yeah. I feel so blessed. I feel so lucky. And it's almost like I have to pinch myself because I'm like, am I really doing this? Am I really doing this? Like, is this my job? Because it's just, it brings me so much joy. And I guess Joy Tribe, I mean, is what everyone wants in their life. And I think it's above all money and everything material, is that people want joy. And I now have that across my entire life. And it's wonderful. And I want others to feel that too. So I truly feel blessed. And I'm sure you feel the same.
No, I'm grateful. But when I started the podcast, and I tell people a week before the podcast launched, I was talking to my mom and I was like, who's going to want to listen? Who's going to want to tune in? Who's going to want to whatever? And last week, I think on Tuesday or Thursday, I had 1,000 listens on the podcast. And so for for this podcast, it's a very niche. It's dealing with divorce. Even though there's things that are talked about that even if you haven't gone through divorce, could be something that could be a key for you that maybe you're not seeing. My earlier co-host that I had on with me when we launched the podcast, Marion Wilson, we had some conversations that I'm like, this is very unique because, like, you know, there's love languages or appreciation languages. One episode, we actually talked about sex languages. And so it's unique. So oh, well, you'll have to wait.
Perfect timing.
I know it's all good. But it is unique because when I look at it, like, I was like, there's a language for everything. And when we were doing some research and found out sex languages, I was like, this is such a unique thing. But it is one of those things that maybe you're in a relationship and you don't know that piece. And because we talked about it, maybe you go do some research and you find out who you truly are in that realm. To each their own. But that's why I laugh, because I'm like, even though I've gone through the divorce and we talk about the journey beyond divorce, there's still stuff that even maybe you're in a rough situation in your current relationship that could be talked about. And you're like, man, I haven't thought about that. Let me do some research. Let me go do a deep dive. But it is unique because as a content creator doing Facebook Lives, anything of that, a lot of times you get into this mindset before you start getting really deep into who's going to listen, who's going to want to hear my story. But it goes back to when you had shared your story and you had that gentleman reach out, that just shows proof in the pudding that get over that feeling, punch the ego in the face, tell it to sit down and just keep moving forward, because you never know who you're going to impact based on the story and the message that you share.
Yeah, I completely agree. And that's the wonderful thing, I think, about social media and podcasts and YouTube and all of that. Despite there being a lot of, obviously, negativity around that, it has been such a beautiful thing over the past year during this pandemic, during this I mean, I'm in Canada, we're still in lockdown. I have pajama bottoms on the bottom, FYI. So it is just, it's so beautiful. And I say the Facebook groups because I think people are just looking for connection right now. Mm-hmm. And being able to be vulnerable and knowing that your story is being heard is so validating for people. And so, you know, like, oh yeah, I'm not alone in this. I'm not alone in these shitty feelings. Like, mm-hmm. It has been such a beautiful experience. And thankfully it's given me a platform to be able to connect with others. So yeah, I just want to be able to let people know it's okay. It's okay to feel how you feel.
Yeah, no, that's huge. Just know that you're human and that the emotions are just part of being a human, having that human experience. So when you're looking at things that are coming up, things that you're working on, this has kind of hit me as I've thought about it, because usually once I get done with the show, I'll have a talk with the guest that came on after it's done recording. But when I think about it, you never know who's listening to this. You never know who may come across this and who they might know that could be that key for you as an individual that could help you move forward in regards to your endeavor. So what I'm thinking here is, with your future ideas of what you want to accomplish, what's one big thing that you're working on, and what's something that could potentially be that sticking point that maybe we need to overcome to help you get to that next level? Because like I said, as somebody's listening to this, even if it's 2 months down the road, they may know somebody that they could reach out and refer you to. So what's something that you're working on right now, and what's a challenge that you might be facing that is just that sticking point for you to get to what you're trying to accomplish?
For me individually?
Yeah.
So I think in this whole journey, you know, I sit here as a coach, but I also too have things that I need to overcome. There is a lot of, you know, still self-worth things that I have to overcome, and feeling worthy of this great career that I have, and feeling worthy of, sharing my story, and who am I to share my story? So really being able to, work through that, and knowing that despite my experiences, despite life in general, I'm worthy and I'm a good person, and what I'm doing matters. So that's really what's pushing me forward. And then to really get past that is just to keep going and to ask for help when I need it, and to just take those little wins and appreciate them, and hold them tight and move forward. And I mean, you don't have to do something big. I mean, getting out of bed is a goal. Brushing your teeth is a goal. Going for a walk each day is a goal. Just do something little for you that, gets you out of the house, or just gets you out of your mind for just even a little bit. That has been wonderful. I do walks for like an hour with Oprah. I mean, listening to Oprah, obviously. Beautiful. But it's just taking that time for me and really connecting with myself again, because it can, running your own business and coaching and doing your own thing, you can get into your head a lot. And it's not only for entrepreneurs, it is everyone. If you are alone with your thoughts after divorce or a big breakup, like, you need to take care of you. So the first thing I would do is find things that bring you joy and do them.
Awesome. Now, I think that's key. One of the things that, through a mentor of mine, John Kim, who he calls himself the Angry Therapist, he co-founded the Coaching Journey Intensive. He talks about the fact that you've got to get out of your head in your house. And so it is one of those things that you just hit right there, is if you're having those thoughts and you're finding trouble to get away from them, you've got to get out of that current. If you're in a house, get out of the house, because that's a place that may be stagnant for you. Go walk, go do something, get away from that for a little bit, and let you gather your thoughts, let them collect, and then really be present in the moment and say, is this a true thought, or is this something that I'm just creating and making up? And is it a opinion, or is it a fact? And so some things of doing that piece to regather and whatnot. So, but I look at it honestly, when I look at this piece, if somebody knows somebody that you think could be a good connection for myself or the host, the guests that come on, I know I always ask for connection pieces for the guests if somebody wants to reach out to you. So I know there's several different ways, but it is one of those things that everybody knows somebody that you may not know. And it just opens up the door that it could be that one connection piece that really could help trajectory into the next level, whatever that is. And so I find that another beautiful thing, that as somebody's listening, they're like, man, that really resonates with me. I gotta get them connected with this person, see if they're open to it, whatnot. So it is one of those unique things that as I'm doing stuff, things kind of come outside the box, and it's thinking differently and whatnot.
No, I love it. This is why I love podcasts.
And so we have, I usually run about an hour. There's times that we may go a little bit over and whatnot, but towards the end of the show, I do run through, it's called Pod Decks. I don't know if you've ever had anybody that you've gone on as a guest with that's ran through this with you before.
No, but I'm excited. Bring it.
All right. Yep. So it's interesting. Poddex was created by an individual, Travis Brown, that's been podcasting 9-10 years. And this is just another tool that opens up conversations that aren't normally had. And so I just like to have these because it does open up the door to really let the audience kind of see a different perspective and whatnot. So some of these questions, you'll be like, are you kidding me? Like way off the wall. And you're like, oh my goodness, like we got here. So let me go ahead and
just do it.
First one we have is the philosophy deck. And so with this, let's see here. What book have you read multiple times?
The Power of Now.
Okay.
By Eckhart Tolle.
Okay, yeah, I was like, I've heard of the book, I haven't read it. And you said, who wrote that book? Was Tolle?
Eckhart Tolle.
Okay. that's why my grandmother's really big into studying and listening to his studies. So that I was like, that's why that name's or that book's on here.
Yeah, the reason why I had to read it twice was because I didn't understand it the first time. So, and then the second time, I read it a couple years after that, and oh my gosh, it was just like a light had turned on, and I'm like, I get it now. And it's really just about living in the moment, and the past doesn't matter, the future doesn't matter. You only have right now, and it's so true.
And that I think that speaks volumes there too, because reading a book multiple times, it does take some time, because when you read it the first time, your brain's at a point where it can only receive certain information. And then as you expand and work on shaping your mind, going back to that book, you'll see things that were there before, but you weren't ready for it. And then it ends up sticking. You're like, man, like there was something that I needed now. And so that's the beauty of going back and reading a book multiple times.
I have another book that I'm going to be starting soon, but it's Untamed by Glennon Doyle. Oh my God, it's incredible. I will just say that. But it's really just about getting rid of these stories and scripts that you have when you're younger, and being able to just be your own unique and authentic self. It is an incredible book. I suggest it. I mean, The Power of Now is amazing as well, but yeah, Glennon Doyle, Untamed.
Awesome. Love it. No, I think, and that's the thing, somebody could be coming through and listening to this and they're like, I haven't heard that book. Let me go check it out. So I think it's just another tool that you can provide somebody to help them out in whatever endeavor. You just never know what it is. All right. Next one is hypothetical questions. If you could travel anywhere in the world, where would you visit and why?
Australia, because I have wanted to go there ever since I was 11. I had a pen pal from Tasmania, which I think is like a little offshoot. I just always wanted to. I was obsessed with Heath Ledger at a time. So may his R.I.P. But it has just been this beautiful other side of the piece of the world that I've always just wanted to go. And yeah.
And like, I know a lot of people will be like, I want to go to Australia, but then you start seeing these pictures of like the giant spiders and animals that are twice the size that you normally aren't used to. They're like, I don't want to go there anymore.
Yeah, I know.
Have you seen it?
It is just crazy there with the bugs and the spiders.
Yeah. Well, and then you're like, man, well, like, what is with Australian where these bugs, spiders, everything gets humongous, bigger than where you normally see? You're like, what do we have going on in Australia? That's
what's in your water?
It could also, because I've got a friend of mine. So my business partner with 2 native sons, he's got a friend that we know that opened up a coffee business, and he was explaining to us there with the coffee farmers, when they get rid of the pulp, when they cut down the beans and whatnot, the pulp is one of those things that when they throw out, they were actually finding that the pulp was helping plants and vegetation grow 4 times faster than normal fertilizer. So I don't know if that's what we have going on. So maybe
it could be true. You're putting in the nutrients.
Yeah. And then the last one that we have here, would you rather be lost in the worst part of town, or break down on an abandoned highway?
This is a hard one. I would say break down in the highway, because I feel like I would just go walk and like be by myself and like find a new place to go. It would be an adventure.
Love it. Well, that's an experience there too. So if you look at it, and then that just allows you to do some more deep dive on yourself potentially.
Right, exactly. Self-development 101.
Love it. So before we end the episode here, 2 things. Anything that was a point that stuck out for you, any aha moments, anything that you took away, or maybe one last piece of advice that we didn't hit on? And then if somebody wanted to get a hold of you and talk to you and just have a conversation, how could they go about to do that?
Yeah, so I guess for this episode, I would just say, don't feel like you have to be someone you're not, or live up to this idea of who the world thinks you should be. It is really about, who do you want to be? What life do you want to live? And really hone in on that. And it doesn't matter how unthinkable it is, you can do it. You can do it. And that is, you can be your own heroine or hero of your own inner adventure and epic love story. So I will leave with that, and you can find me at www.thejoytribeco.ca, and you can also find me on Facebook and Insta at The Joy Tribe Co.
Awesome. So I'll put that in the show notes. I'll go back. I'll put that information in the video on Facebook and also the YouTube channel. So that way it's in the show notes, or not show notes, but the description and whatnot. But Erin, I want to thank you for reaching out. Thank you for giving me your time to join on the podcast here. Great information. And I'd love to have that connection, because if I don't know, or if I don't have a coach that could help somebody else out, I know that I can reach out to you and have another resource to connect somebody with. So greatly appreciate that, to have this relationship, to be able to do that. But I always tell people, if you guys are listening to this and you're stuck, don't hesitate to sit there, reach out, ask for help, have the conversations, sit down and talk to somebody. So that way you can start working to get from baseline to thriving and overcome and get to the best life possible that you want to live, but also become the best version of yourself that you want to have out there. So the biggest thing is, don't hesitate, reach out, ask for help, just have the conversation. And the biggest thing is, if you're looking and you believe that if you ask for help, that's a sign of weakness, that's the last thing that you want to have in your mind. Get rid of that. It's not a sign of weakness. You're going to stay strong. You're going to be able to overcome it by having somebody in your corner, having that partnership that can help you out to get to wherever you want to go and thrive in. So, but other than that, appreciate everybody's support. Thank you for the love that you show for the show and just coming up and helping out. But I want to thank everybody for you guys being just great humans, just you being you, and just showing up every day and making an impact in the world. Other than that, I'll catch everybody later. Have a great day. Love you guys.
Bye.